Hello, hello, mic check. This is Postdoc Chronicles. Week number 100, 100 weeks in South Africa. But anyway, yeah, I wasn't able to do this last weekend. Let's do this very quick because I'm gonna eat my lunch. But the reason why I forgot to record this last weekend, it's because Bloodstained, the Curse of the Moon for the Nintendo Switch released last Friday. And of course, I played this game like on the original one, the Bloodstained, the Curse of the Moon on the 3DS, so it's available on the 3DS. It's also available on the PS Vita. So let me adjust my camera right here very quickly. Okay, as you can see, it's also on the PS Vita. But most importantly, both the original is also available on the Nintendo Switch, but I preferred playing it on the much smaller handhelds like the 3DS on the PSV and the PS Vita. Most importantly on the PS Vita because of the OLED screen. But unfortunately, the sequel 2 is only available on the Nintendo Switch. They're not available anymore on the 3DS and the PS Vita. So let me try and rearrange it like that so that we can see the glory of the 3DS as well. So let me do this shot for the thumbnail. Okay. So here we go. Yeah. Okay. But let's before going to the postdoc, let's talk about this series. And again, if you want to, before we dive into it, if you want to play the series, go for a console with a proper D-pad because this is a hardcore platformer, and you want a proper D-pad, and of course, the Nintendo Switch, I have also a modded D-pad, so I have no problem because if you have an original Nintendo Switch like this one, I have another Switch. The D-pad is like it's not your usual D-pad because it allows the Procon to be used sideways, so that's why this is not a D-pad. But yeah, if you're just using it alone, then it's nice to have a D-pad. So that's why I have this modded right here, and of course, if you have like a Nintendo Switch Lite, which of course I also have, then you have no problem because that also has its own built-in D-pad. As you can see, I really love D-pads. That's why I modded this one. But anyway, yeah, Castlevania. No, not Castlevania. Of course, I always mistake this game for Castlevania because Bloodstained, the series Bloodstained is created, is developed by the Koji Igarashi, the father of Castlevania series. He was let go from Konami, so he's not anymore handling Castlevania. We didn't receive any new Castlevania to date, and any Castlevania that will release from Konami will not be handled by Koji Igarashi anymore. So that's why there's now a spiritual successor. They created a Kickstarter and released Bloodstained. It's actually a ritual of the night. So if you know the history of your Castlevania basically a branch into two parts because initially the initial Castlevania games, Castlevania 1, 2, 3, on the NES and the Super Castlevania on the SNES or the ones on the Game Boys, they are like hardcore platformer in a sense that you just go from it's just stage by stage. You go stage one, you go from the first point to the finish point, and then there's a boss fight at the end. These are the format of the original Castlevania games, and eventually it divided into something else. It spawned the Metroidvania genre when we had the Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation, and arguably this format of Castlevania. So eventually you have Symphony of the Night, you have things like Aria of Sorrow, Dawn of Sorrow, and all these things on the Game Boy Advance and on the Nintendo DS. These things became even more popular than the original format, which is the stage by stage with a boss fight. And so what happened is that in Bloodstained, the Kickstarter is actually for Ritual of the Night, and Ritual of the Night is actually a spiritual successor of the spiritual successor of the original Symphony of the Night. So it's a Metroidvania format. And in fact, let me get here very quick. I actually have a cart. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, I have a cart of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. So this is what I'm talking about. Okay, the Ritual of the Night. So we're gonna talk about this in some other future Postdoc Chronicles. Maybe if we can get into it because there are a lot of games on the Nintendo Switch. But basically, Ritual of the Night has the Symphony of the Night format, but they have like one of the Kickstarter goals where if they reach this particular amount of money, they will create a side series that pays homage to the original Castlevania series, and that's why we have the Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, and yeah, this is not Metroidvania. This is like your hardcore like Castlevania platformer with the with the knockbacks and all those things, and it's really hard. And the nice thing that they introduced in the modern series in the Curse of the Moon, which is absent in the original Castlevania games on the NES, is that it actually has a casual mode, so it's like it's not as hardcore. There are no knockbacks. You have the damage you take is not that huge, etc. But if you really want the NES experience, then you go hardcore. Okay, and that's how I played. And again, it's very good. Like there's like on the Switch, there's already HD Rumble and all those things. But I would have loved it if it is still available on the PS Vita. But anyway, yeah, enough about that. Again, if you're interested, it's available, I believe, last Friday. So that's like July 10th on the eShop. Okay, so Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon 2. But let's go to Postdoc. So basically, last week I just focused on the analysis stuff, setting it up and asking help from Lawrence. So Lawrence is, by the way, Deepak's PhD student who did his qualification task on the boosted heavy neutrinos, right-handed heavy neutrinos, and then looking at electrons and muons inside the fat jet. Okay, and basically what we're gonna do is we are going to extend that analysis with a newer set of atlas data. And so in order to do that, we have to use this framework known as AnalysisTop. And so I did the tutorial, on all those things of the AnalysisTop. But the thing is, the particular thing that we want is that we want to hack something within the AnalysisTop framework so that we can play around with this option called the overlap removal, because by default, overlap removal is on the analysis stop framework. And basically what it does is it helps you identify or remove basically duplicates when you have jets faking as electrons, because sometimes electrons, they deposit energies in the calorimeters, and then when you construct jets, that's also what the algorithm basically look like. They look it the algorithm looks at the energy deposits on the calorimeter. So sometimes you have electrons that are reconstructed as jets. So that's why we have these things called jets faking leptons. So usually what you do is, if you have like an isolated electron, you look at like a certain distance around it, like sometimes delta R, usually 0.2 typically, and then remove any jets you see within that. Then you know that that's an isolated electron. You remove the jet that was faking it. But after removing the leading jet around it, if there's still a jet, then probably this electron is a product of the hadronic process, within the jet vicinity. So you don't. So instead of removing the jet, you remove the electron instead, because this time the electron is faking as a jet. Okay, so that's the overlap removal. And we wanted to play around with the delta R of the overlap removal. So you have to hack something within the AnalysisTop framework, and this is not done in the usual tutorial. And in fact, in the usual tutorial, it is calling a lot of dependencies. I mean, in the usual tutorial, it is not calling some dependencies that we will be using when trying to hack our own build of the analysis stuff within the local area. So I asked Lawrence a lot of help regarding this. So basically, the task is he will be doing the exact analysis of looking at the specific lepton that he'll be looking at within the fat jet will be the electrons. I'll be assigned the muons. So basically, he has an analysis. He has some trigger cuts for the electron, and then I look at his corresponding macro file and his corresponding analysis top cuts for the electrons. And then I told him maybe he can just tweak this around and apply them for the muon. But he said I need to look at, because Deepak's former postdoc student Dibarati was also looking at this, and in fact they had an atlas note, a very comprehensive atlas note. So I didn't see this atlas note before, and Lawrence emailed me a copy, and it's like, look at this atlas note, and then here are the specific triggers that we need to follow for the muon. So I received the atlas note, and it's like I thought atlas note are just like 20 pages, something like that. This is like over 100 pages of atlas notes. So I'm gonna go through that. So I'm still going through that. I don't think I'm gonna read it all. I'm just gonna look at, the points or the specific trigger cuts that I need for the new one, so that I can apply it on my corresponding cuts, and then we can proceed. Okay, so basically, yeah, that's just what I did last time in the checkmate analysis. I tried that, like, doing it again. The next stage that I tried was, because in the final state we looked at Higgs decaying to BB bar, which is like above 50%. So I asked myself, what if I only look at those Higgs events that are only decaying to BB bar. So I tweaked the spectrum file just to make sure that all my Higgs are decaying to BB bar. And then, because maybe the reason that I'm getting a lower amount of cuts in my particular checkmate analysis is maybe because I have a fewer events with Higgs going to BB bar. So I did that hack. I made sure that all Higgs are decayed to BB bar, but then I'm still getting the same difference with the Atlas versus checkmate analysis, whereby in Atlas 90% of the events survive after the initial missing ET requirement, while in my particular cut, the same missing ET requirement I also gave, but I only have 70% of the events surviving. So I'm still gonna look into that this week again. Okay, but anyway, yeah, I'm gonna look at the analysis top, and I also by the way, in Atlas, that we also have this ongoing analysis on SUSI, a general PMSSM scan. So it's a phenomenological minimal supersymmetric standard model, PMSSM. Yeah, high energy physics. They love their abbreviations, but anyway, yeah. I'm gonna update more about this once we start our kickoff meeting, which will be on August 7. Okay, so this is like an entirely different analysis on upcoming scans for SUSI parameters. But yeah, I'm gonna have my lunch now. This has been Postdoc Chronicles, week number 100. I'll see you guys next time in Postdoc Chronicles, week 101. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.